To all those people watching, I'd like to remind everyone that this video is not made for kids. It's for older fans and adults. Enjoy the fucking video! Many years ago, Toby used to work on an old tramway in East Anglia on the mainland, pulling passengers from the towns and villages and goods from the farms. But years later, cars, buses and lorries came and took his jobs, and it resulted in his line being closed down for good. Before that, however, a stout gentleman came to his line with his wife and 2 children. This was, of course, Sir Topham Hatt 1. After they came back from their holiday, Sir Topham Hatt 1 noticed that Thomas was in a spot of bother with the constable. According to the constable, the law prohibited Thomas from travelling on the line leading to the quarry at the end of his branch line. However, it was revoked years ago. But before anyone knew about that, Sir Topham Hatt 1 bought Toby, Henrietta and Elsie from his old line and worked them on the far branch line. He was very happy to have settled his new life here. But one day, "Well, fancy seeing you here again, Garden Shed," Toby gasped. Next to him was Algy the blue bus. Algy was one of these buses that had worked near Toby's line. One day he took passengers to the seaside for market day. He was travelling very fast and then had an accident. Workmen had been mending some gas pipes under the road, and Algy, who was going much too fast, had crashed into some signs and landed in a hole. Luckily, Toby came to save them that day. Now Algy was working along Thomas's branch line taking passengers. "What are you doing here, Algy?" asked Toby crossly. "I thought you'd been scrapped after that accident of yours." "Why would I be scrapped?" replied Algy crossly. "I'm too smart and modern to be scrapped unlike you. I don't know what your controller sees in you. You're nothing but slow, worn-out pieces of wood on rails." Toby was offended by such words. "At least I can keep an eye on where I'm going, and take the time that I need. I may not be fast and I may look old, but I'm really useful." "Useful?" scoffed Algy, and he laughed hard. "What's so useful about you? A garden shed, more likely, or a museum piece, not transport." Well, mind how you go, Algy, and watch out for gas pipes on your way, please, replied Toby, and he puffed away after the guard blew his whistle. It was a cold December morning on the island, and although Christmas had passed, there was another celebration just a few days afterwards, and that is New Year's. But there was a downside to it all, and that downside is snow. It may be fun for children, but for the engines and for the cars, buses and lorries, it means slippery surfaces, blocked paths and the freeze. However, snow or not, at night the village of Farquhar would often come together for the annual New Year's celebrations. Passengers would mingle around the stalls and carnival rides, and as it gets close to the new year, all the people and engines count down to midnight to bring in the new year with fireworks being blasted into the night sky. It was very popular with people coming from all the villages and valleys. Some people across the island come to it as well, and Bertie the bus on a mystery tour. He would collect booked passengers from the big station and would take them to every place around the island for some sightseeing. Then at the end of the tour, he would take them to the New Year's celebration. On New Year's Eve morning, Toby's driver came to start work. "Ooh, it's a cold one today," he shivered. "Let's have a look at the barometer." He then saw what the needle was pointing to. "Oh dear, looks like there's some snow on the way." "Snow?" replied Thomas, and then he looked to the sky. "How could there be snow? There's not even a grey cloud." "Maybe not now, but you never know when the weather might change," replied Toby. "My driver's old barometer is never wrong. Remember that rain we had a few days back which resulted in a landslide near Mrs. Cunliffe's house? The barometer wasn't wrong about that." And when Toby had enough steam, he puffed away. Despite it being New Year's Eve, work still needed to be done. Toby's usual first job was to collect workmen for the quarry, but with it being the Christmas break, the workmen were with their families for the holidays. But back orders of stone were needed to be transported to the harbour for their final deliveries. Toby arrived at the junction where the line leads to the harbour. He then saw Algy coming down the road. "Morning, Algy! Happy New Year's Eve!" called Toby. Algy stopped. "How on earth did a garden shed like you get here before me?" "My name's Toby," replied the tram engine firmly, "and I left early so I could take these back orders of stone to the harbour." "Ha! A lorry could do that job more quickly than an old garden shed like you. You would take forever to finish a job like that until next New Year's Eve." Toby rolled his eyes, but he ignored Algy's remark and then said, "You best be careful today, Algy. There's snow on the way." "Snow?" Algy then looked up towards the sky and then he laughed again. "Are you going crazy? Look at the sky. My driver told me that the radio says it was going to be cold but dry for a few weeks. Where on earth did you hear that it was going to snow?" "My driver's old barometer, that's what, and it's never wrong." "Barometer? Ha! What is it with you and old things, garden shed? They're useless just like you." "Well, if it snows today, Algy, don't come crying to me when I told you so." And he puffed away. Bertie would usually take the sightseers on their day of their mystery tour, but today his engine wouldn't start. His driver tried to fix them, but no matter how many times, Bertie couldn't start. "Hey, it looks like you can't do the tour this year, Bertie," sighed his driver. Bertie was most disappointed. "Oh, I've been looking forward to this whole thing for weeks." "Oh, no, chap," replied the driver sympathetically. "Maybe I'll do it," replied Algy happily. "I would love to see the rest of the island, and to get away from that old fusspot garden shed. But you just came to the island, Algy. You don't know the roads like I do." "Pah! Roads are roads, Bertie, and we have signs to show where we need to go. But you still don't know the way, especially if snow comes about today. Oh, don't you start believing that nonsense from that garden shed. Well, he told me, and I do trust him since he's a friend. Look, I'm the only bus left, so I'll have to do this mystery tour thing for you. And he rolled away. Bertie and Algy got along well, but sometimes Bertie gets annoyed with Algy's rude and stubborn behavior. By the afternoon, Algy had finished his work, and he collected Bertie's tour passengers at the big station, and then set off for their sightseeing tour. Meanwhile, Toby was carrying on with the last delivery of back-ordered stone to the harbour. He hadn't seen Algy anywhere on the road. Well, he's not bus can't bother me, wherever he is, thought Toby, as he shunted down the line with the trucks rattling behind him. He then saw the skies above. Oh, it's getting grey. I hope the snow doesn't fall during the New Year's party tonight. Well, I hope so too, old boy. Best we warn the others about it. Then, to Toby's surprise, the first drop of snow fell from the sky. It's snowing! Snow at last, cried Toby's driver happily. My dear old Barometer was right after all. Best we get back before it's really bad, replied Toby. The snow came down by the minute as both Tomas and Toby puffed up and down the line with their passengers. Some were coming home from their Christmas holidays, and others were making their way to the New Year's party at Farquhar. Bertie's engine was repaired, and he was also helping out with Tomas and Toby with the passengers too. Where's Algy? I haven't seen him all afternoon today. He's out taking my tour passengers while my engine was broken down. I told him that he didn't know much about the roads, but that bus is sure stubborn about himself. Thinks the tarmac will guide him, but in snow like this. Toby was feeling worried. Although he never gets along with Algy, he hoped for his safety as well as the passengers. Meanwhile, Algy was on his way to the party. However, they were in a rush because Algy and his driver were new to the island. They got lost on their way to the sightseers' location. The snow had stopped, but the road was slippery, and the snow had covered the tarmac. As they came towards the crest of the hill, he began to slide down the road as they were going much too fast. Oh, he groaned. Algy's driver held onto the wheel as Algy crashed into a big mound of snow. Oh, get me out! He cried as his face was muffled behind the snow. The passengers got out of Algy. Luckily, no one was hurt, but they were very cross. We'll be late to our mystery destination at this rate, one of them cried. Algy's driver tried to keep the passengers calm. I'm sure we can find some shelter here until help comes along, he said. Come on, let's have a look. So they did, and then they came across a barn. There's a barn over there, he cried. I'm sure the farmer would be all right with us staying there until help arrives. Luckily, the farmer didn't mind if Algy's passengers stayed at the barn. I'll bring out some cocoa and tea for you all to drink, and some biscuits for you to eat. I'll start off fine too and keep a good lookout for one of Sir Topham's engines. Thank you, said the driver and passengers. Meanwhile, Algy was waiting in the snow, feeling cold, lonely, and miserable. The farmer did everything for his guests, and then after he made a fire for them, he walked towards his fence and waited for an engine. Toby was on his way towards the top station. He then came to a spot of bother on his own. Ooh, he hissed. He puffed into a mound of snow himself. Toby tried to push it aside, but his wheels slipped on the rails. Oh dear, he said worriedly. Now what? Don't worry, the fireman and I will shovel the snow out of the way. So they did. While Toby was waiting, he then heard some singing nearby. Hang on, what's that? Oh, what's what? Gasped the fireman after he shoveled some snow. Outside of the barn, the passengers were singing songs to pass the time until help came. They didn't know that Toby was nearby. The farmer was still looking out for help, Then he saw Toby's lamp shining in the distance. He then ran down towards him. "Cool, I'm glad that you're here," he said. "We got some people who come from a bus earlier, and they needed a lift. The driver told me it's to be for Farquhar Station." "Oh, so they're passengers for the mystery tour then?" "Yes, that's what the driver told me. Don't worry, once my crew clears their snow, I'll collect them." "Is Algy there too?" "The bus?" asked the farmer. "Yes," answered Toby. "Oh, that blue bus. Don't worry, I contacted Butch to help clear him out." "Right," said Toby's driver. "Tell the passengers we'll be helping them shortly." So the farmer did. The passengers were pleased, and by the time Toby's crew cleared the snow, he puffed up towards the farm. And with the passengers on board, he puffed away. Butch the tow truck arrived. "Don't worry, Algy. We'll get you out in no time." Soon Algy was cleared of the snow, and after checking to see if any damage was done, Algy rolled away to the top station, feeling bad that he berated Toby and his driver's barometer. The New Year's party was located at the car park of the top station. Tomas, Toby and Bertie were looking on as the passengers were enjoying themselves. Then Algy rolled into the car park. "Well, Algy, had some fun in the snow that I warned you about?" teased Toby. Yeah. I'm sorry, Toby." Toby was surprised. He had never heard Algy ever saying his name before. "I'm sorry for calling you names, and for being rude to you on your old line, as well as berating old driver's barometer. I thought being one makes me more useful since I was made to be more progressive. But after staying in that mound of snow, I realized that you, no matter how old you are really useful. Thank you for taking my passengers for me." Toby smiled. "Well, that's alright, and it's very kind of you to apologize, and I accept it." Soon it was time for the countdown. "I hope we make a fresh start between us, Toby," said Algy. "I hope so too," replied Toby, smiling. "Happy New Year, Algy, and you the same, Toby. Happy New Year."
Smiles returning to the faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun. sun, I see it's alright. Sun, 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 here it comes. 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 Little darling, I see the ice is slowly melting. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been clear. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun. It's alright. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun. It's alright. It's alright.